Hey there, this is Frankie Sparks.
And this is Scott Eisenberg.
We're married.
And we have a podcast called Shoot the Flick.
Every week, Scott and I introduce each other to a new movie the other one has never seen. We talk about it, give our thoughts on it, and also share some behind-the-scenes fun facts.
We want you guys to come along and enjoy the movies with us.
Check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Shoot the Flick, and check out our weekly episodes every single Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere else you can find a podcast.
Come and listen to us now as Frankie and I
Shoot the Flick!
Just a heads up for everybody, there's some sensitive topics discussed, so we're going to put a little trigger warning for sexual assaults and maybe some transphobia discussed in this episode. So just so you know. And welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. We are a movie podcast where three friends watch movies and then fight. My name is Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And you can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. So this week, it's a Jackie pick week. I think we're all pretty stoked about it. I'm going to share with you what one of our hosts described this movie. It was Jen. She doesn't want me to say it, but it was Jen. She aptly described it as, we are ascending from the depths of the descent to the skies with Conair. Yay!
Guys, I am a poet, okay? Thank you.
Honestly, it was so beautiful. You said it last week, and I'm like, I'm writing that down. This needs to be shared. People need to feel these words. So thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
Poetry.
everyone.
I expect nothing less in your analysis of Conair. This movie is poetry of a sort. So Conair, guys. Conair. It's funny because every time I say Conair, I think of the hairdryer. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, so now I'm trying to make a distinct separation between the words con, space, air.
I mean, this movie does have some great hair, so there is also that connection. Some
and
long flowing locks.
Right? It's blowing in a breeze. Maybe
Yeah.
It is a Conair hairdryer off screen. This is the quality of movie we're looking at. So maybe they just had multiple handheld
people off
blow
stage
dryers.
just holding blow
Yeah.
dryers.
But I guess, Jen, you'd seen Conair, right?
Yes, so this is one of those movies. A lot of Jackie picks kind of fall into this category for me, where I watched them as a kid, loved and obsessed over them, but haven't seen them since. So this is how Conair was for me. I have strong childhood memories of loving the shit out of this movie. Hadn't seen it in about 20 years. So.
Mm-hmm. I will say that I'm kind of similar. Like, it's been a long time since I saw Conair, but I don't think it's been 20 years. It's probably been like 10 for me, maybe 5. But still, a lot of it was memories and impressions and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm being confronted with the reality of Conair, which we'll get into. But Austin, I'm assuming you hadn't seen it at all.
Shocker. No, this will come as a
Shocker.
surprise to no one.
I was really worried about this one for Austin. And I think that worry was justified and will be very justified during this conversation. I have concerns.
We'll talk. We'll talk later.
We'll
Yeah.
talk.
I feel like there's some key points Austin's going to have some struggles with.
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like this is one of those movies where I knew a little bit about. Like, I knew what it looked like. I could picture Nick Cage in it. I could picture Steve Buscemi in it. And I knew, like, kind of fleeting storylines of it, but I wasn't entirely sure of the plot. So my guess was that I know it's a bunch of criminals stuck on a plane, so I'm assuming they're being transported to a new prison. I think one of them has a storyline about his daughter. She probably dies. So I thought that the little girl at the end was gonna die, so I was shocked. So I was like, okay, that's who I was mistaking. But anyway, child endangerment.
True. Children are in danger.
Mm-hmm.
Many people are in danger in this movie. There are many civilian casualties.
Yeah, I have a body count. I think it's probably off by several hundred.
Yeah. I'm sure they don't take into account the fact that they land a plane in the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And Jen, what was your summary?
Yeah, so I kind of tried to go off memory. So I wrote, Nicolas Cage is about to be released from prison and reunited with his wife and a daughter that he's never met. He's bringing her a stuffed bunny, which is important. He is being transported with other much worse criminals, and they stage a coup, take control of the plane. They're trying to escape so they don't have to go back to prison. And then Nicolas Cage starts secretly working against them to contact the police on the ground. I couldn't quite remember how that relationship worked, where he's trying to, like, work with John Cusack, I guess. But I was like, I don't remember how that's possible. There's no, like, phones they're using to text each other. But anyway, so I'm like, he's trying to help land the plane and get the criminals to justice, but without tipping them off to let them know that he's working against them. And also, most importantly, he has to bring the stuffed bunny home to his daughter.
Perfection. It's 100% it. Just to flesh it out a tiny bit, yeah, Nicolas Cage is on parole. He's hitching a ride to his release spot for some reason on a plane full of the worst criminals in America who are going to a new super max facility.
We're going to have to really get into the logistics of this at some point, because it's really a lot of leaps in logic. Anyway.
There's a lot of leaps. Also, his best prison friend, Baby-O, is being transferred, but not released. So he's also going to a different jail, but not the super max. They're just catching a ride, the two of them. They're both basically presented to be like your average, not so bad criminal, and Nicolas Cage, who is a purely innocent man who killed someone in self-defense. We'll get into it. But basically, yeah, there's a drug lord's son on the plane, and he has paid/arranged with the other criminals to hijack the plane and get his son out of there. That's the main goal of these criminals. And Cyrus the Virus is John Malkovich. He's the main brain guy behind this escape attempt. And Cameron Poe is Nicolas Cage. He has the opportunity to get off the plane, but it would leave a female guard in danger of being assaulted, which they've made very clear she will be. And also Baby-O has diabetes and he needs insulin. Everything gets broken. So Cameron Poe's like, Baby-O's getting sicker and sicker. So his main goal is to like save everybody and save Baby-O. But basically he doesn't really care that much about the criminals. He's like, you guys can go fly off. He's like, I just need to save my friend and this one woman prison guard. And yeah, there's a stuffed bunny, blah, blah, blah. So that's it. It's like Nicolas Cage versus a plane full of the worst criminals on earth, apparently. Oh, and Nicolas Cage is a Army Ranger, FYI. He's some special forces dude.
Because we could not get through a single Jackie pick without the military being involved in some way. Like even in a
passing
movie,
way, a fleeting moment
yeah,
of him in
even
uniform.
in a movie about criminals, it's like, but the main guy's an Army Ranger. Anyway, moving on.
The opening scene, I was like, I lost them. I lost them immediately because it's like the Army Rangers and it's like, you are the few, the proud, the super killifiable. And I was like, they're gone. They hate it already. It's done. And it's like desert commando scenes and like an American flag in the background all faded out. And I was like, all right, well, I got to bring them back in it. How do I bring them back in? I know, a Cheesley Land Rhymes song right off the top. That'll get them.
Oh my God. That opening, so again, like I hadn't seen this movie since I was a kid, and there are certain scenes that are burned into my memory that I will never not think about because they're so amazing. This opening, I had completely forgot all of it, of how Nicolas Cage even gets to jail. So when it starts with like army propaganda and then some like country bar with his pregnant wife and some guy's like, I'm gonna be a jackass and try to assault her right now in front of her army husband. I was like, what is this movie?
Yeah.
The entire opening makes zero sense. I am 100% with you. None of it makes sense. He's coming back from being deployed. She's somehow pregnant, but has a completely flat belly. So what? How?
He was gone
And
like 2
then-
weeks. Don't worry about it.
Oh, but like,
Yeah.
oh, I missed you so much. Like
He was
it's been
gone like
forever.
2 weeks, Jackie. It's fine.
But then why is he like picking her up and spinning her around? Why isn't he like, yes, handshake, good to see you. It's
Because
been
they're
2 weeks.
so in love, Jackie. They're so
Yeah.
in love that Leanne Rimes starts singing anytime they're together.
She really does. Leanne Rimes just follows them around. How do I? Also, yeah, why is this guy a dick? I thought people in the southern United States love the army. Why didn't he be like, thank you for your service, sir?
And like, the guy's such an extreme, over-the-top dick out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage and his wife are just talking in the middle of this bar, and he's like, well, now's the time for me to go over there and be a creep to her. and then aggressive to him while they're trying to slow dance.
My very first note is read the room, skis ball.
For real, right? Like and it's not like Nicolas Cage is not a fairly broad, large dude. Like he's obviously supposed to be an Army Ranger type. Like, you think that's the guy you want to pick a fight with right now? In the middle of a bar?
Yeah.
A crowded bar?
Yeah.
I think they were really trying to set up that this guy is so bad it's justified for Nicolas Cage to kill a man.
Yeah. Fair. And he is. Also, nobody in their right mind. Okay, say you want to pick a fight with a guy. You're that dude. You're burning desires to fight someone. I still don't believe that 3 guys would wait out in the pouring rain and get soaked to the skin and wait for them to come out. Like, They literally are hiding behind a chain link fence.
And, like, to do what? To jump Nicolas Cage, the military, like, ranger who's in uniform. You know he's an army dude. You're gonna jump him, stab him, I guess? Because someone had a knife. And then the 3 of you are gonna rape the wife? Like, what's the game plan, boys?
I feel like the ultimate goal was just to beat him up and to, like, show that they're men. I think they would have just left her alone, really. But, like, she's their waitress, and they were like, you're supposed to serve us. And he took her away from them, and it's all about machismo. I don't know if you got that from this movie.
It's so funny, because I remember when we were doing Cliffhanger, Jackie used the word machismo, and that's all I could think of throughout this entire fucking movie. Like, every character, the guards, the, like, DEA versus whatever, FBI versus whatever, caught people on the ground, and, like, then the criminals, obviously. I'm like, this is just a bunch of fucking dudes and machismo to the core. Still love the movie.
Dick measuring. This is the ultimate dick measuring. They all scream at each other nonstop. That is not my favorite part of this movie. But we'll get into the dynamics of the relationships between some of these people, because there's some very, like, they're trying to accomplish certain things with these relationships, and I want to know if you guys think they succeed. But basically, he kills this guy with, like, a jab nose, which we're all taught, all the girls in, like, grade 8 are taught, strike with the palm of your, like, the heel of your palm into their nose, and you can potentially kill them.
Which is cool, by the way. Yeah. That's a cool thing to know.
I think it's great. And also, there was 3 against 1, and they started it. Like, it's such... I can see why they filmed it the way they did. They had Monica Potter leave so that she wasn't a witness to what actually happened. And one of the 2 guys who didn't die took the knife with him.
Yeah. Which
they make very clear. So that they're trying to make it seem like he could be convicted for this, but I really don't think so. Everyone in the bar saw him be accosted by this guy. Monica Potter saw 3 men approach her husband before she ran away. And then they even take the step further when he's convicted of manslaughter to say, you're not subject to the normal rules.
Yeah, which actually... Sorry.
Question. You're
you
not
guys
held
both
to the same
exploded.
standard.
You're both just like, what?
You're not held. You are a deadly weapon. Something about you're a deadly weapon, so you're not held to the same standards as the average person or whatever. It's like, is that a thing?
I mean, I'm no expert, but what I know of the United States judicial system is not that they are harder on men in uniform.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, Jen, what? It's true. And I was like, if they were going to make different allowances or whatever punishments, it would be a military court.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're not going to ever be more harsh on a military vet because they trained him to kill. It's like, I know the government did this to you and gave you this training, but now you're being punished for it.
Yeah, it's a real, like, leap in logic, and I don't know. I get that they need to set up that Nicolas Cage, A, isn't an actual bad guy like the real criminals, and, like, B, he still has to be in jail long enough to, you know, be on this plane and have never met his daughter, blah, blah, blah. Like, he needs to be someone who's getting released from prison, but also not a bad guy. So this is what they came up with, and I just don't necessarily buy it. Like, I think even if we skipped this, and, like, started the movie with him being released from prison and being like, oh, I was in a bar fight and accidentally killed a guy, but now I get to go home and see my wife. Like, that's all you need.
That would have been better, because, the beginning was strange. And, like, the montage thing with him kind of just writing letters to his daughter and her writing back.
Totally
I don't need this bullshit. It's just a time-passing thing. We get it. He's in jail for 7 years? It's fine. Like, just say that.
Also love, there's one scene in the montage where he's just, like, in his cell writing letters during the most inflamed prison riot of all time, and I was like, I'm sorry, no.
He just rolled
Everything's
over.
on fire. Everything's on fire. People are screaming and running, and he's just like puts his pillow over his head and goes to sleep. And I'm like,
And like, I get it's also supposed to be showing us that he's not, his time in prison, he hasn't become a hardened criminal. He's still a good guy or whatever, and he doesn't take part in these things. But again, like, not an expert, don't think that's how prison riots work.
I don't think any of this is how prison works.
No.
But I'm on Austin's side. Cut that whole letter stuff out.
Yes.
It's not working to build a relationship between these two. I don't care. Every time Nicolas Cage says the word hummingbird, I get super bummed out. That is the world's worst nickname for a person, and it literally gives me like goosebumps of disgust. I'm sorry, but is that the worst name ever? Hummingbird?
I feel like
Can
it's
we-
just
sorry.
10 times worse because it's coming out of the mouth of Nicolas Cage.
With that accent.
Yeah.
What do you think is the story behind the nickname Hummingbird? Because that's not a typical pet name for a loved one. It's not like Sweetie or Honey. So it's Hummingbird. So, like, does she drink a lot of nectar? Like, does she buzz really fast? Like, what is it about her that is a hummingbird?
I think Nicolas Cage is so stupid. Sorry, I think Cameron Poe, the character, is so stupid. He's just like, look at that there bird. It's pretty like you. Please cut that. I hate myself. I can't do this accent. It's so bad.
Neither can he. That didn't stop him. I'm leaving that in. Because I think it's a good transition. Should we talk about Cameron Poe and his accent
Cameron Poe.
and the choices that were made? Because there were several.
Okay,
So many
here's
choices.
my first question to you guys. Did he need to be Southern? Would he have just had Nicolas
No.
Cage's voice in this movie?
If he didn't have an accent, it would have been 100 times better, and he would have been 100 times more intimidating as a supposed like Army Ranger buff guy. The Southern accent makes him seem so much stupider and slower because Nicolas Cage does it so badly.
You know what's hilarious to me is that he went and spent time in Alabama to, and I'm using quotation marks here, perfect his accent.
Okay, so he went on a bender in
Yeah.
Alabama. He could have used like a dialect coach, perhaps.
Yes.
Like he could have really
Yes.
tried, but he did not try. Like this was not an effort.
Yeah, I think, Jackie, you had a good point where you're like, he's so much less intimidating, and I'm like, maybe that's the point. Maybe that's how he has the other prison guys kind of underestimate him because they just keep calling him hillbilly and he sounds stupid, so they don't necessarily take him seriously. But I still think if they could have gone for that, maybe with like a more realistic sounding Southern accent rather than Nicolas Cage's attempt.
think
Cameron
he did-
Poe.
Yeah. I would have liked it better if they made him an intimidating character and like the criminals like him because he's competent and he has good ideas and he can figure out the plan. I don't need them to underestimate him because he sounds like a hillbilly. You know what I mean? Like it undercuts his whole portrayal as being strong and capable and intimidating and scary, which is supposed to be his thing, right?
Yeah, I didn't pick up that. Were we supposed to feel like the other prisoners were underestimating him? Because I didn't pick up on that if I was supposed to.
I think John Malkovich wasn't and the others were.
Okay.
This is getting into the way they all interact with each other, which is just over the top aggressive violence and machismo. Like, I don't think they are thinking about each other enough to underestimate each other. They're just like,
Right.
This is a vaguely male-shaped target. I will yell at it and try and intimidate that person. Like, it's just these criminals, they give us a little bit of their backstory, and some of them are supposed to be like geniuses and like super hackers and like really brilliant criminal minds, but then when it comes down to it, they just all scream and scream and scream.
Can we take this opportunity now to talk about the cast of criminals? Because, oh my god, there's so many fun, amazing actors playing all these convicts, and I love it.
This is a great cast, I will say that.
Absolutely.
It is, and it's underutilized. Like, I wanted way more Buscemi, personally.
Always. In everything. But yeah, he's... Like what I mentioned earlier, there's certain scenes I'll always remember. They're all Buscemi, basically. He's fucking a king. I love him so much.
Yeah, so Steve Buscemi is the, like, Hannibal Lecter kind of guy. They bring him out in that huge... What do you call that thing? Like a mummy suit with a mask
Yeah,
on.
like a stand-up gurney they're kind of pushing him on, and they put him in a cage. Like, it's...
What's that guy's name?
Most evil guy.
Yeah. So yeah, he's like the worst criminal. He's killed 30 people. He wore someone's head as a hat, which can someone please explain to me how that's even possible?
I'm assuming that maybe it was like front jaw up.
Oh, okay. That could make sense.
Okay.
I really thought it was like whole head severed at the neck, plopped on his head and like tied on
with the hair.
Like the hair. I honestly was picturing a ribbon. I don't know why.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe the hair. But like still, they say he drove through 3 states wearing someone's head as a hat. And I'm like, pretty sure a car would notice. I definitely stare at people when I'm in the passenger side of a car. And I'd be like, is that a head hat? Beep boop beep. Hello, police.
Maybe he did this in like October and everyone was like, see that guy's awesome Halloween costume? He's probably going to a party.
Also, like, how tall is his car?
Maybe it's like an open top Jeep or something.
There's not a head height.
Now he definitely has to have a ribbon.
He ties one of those like old 50s style scarves over the head.
A little like, babushka.
Or maybe he like crouches down so it looks like the head is driving.
Okay, now I believe it. At first I was like, you can't do that. You know what? We can make this happen.
We solved it.
Who else we got? We also have
John Malkovich is like the head guy who's also supposed to be like the most genius criminal who's ever existed, but he's also a pure chaos crazy person who's just trying to like kill and blow things up and doesn't care about anything else.
Can I say something really embarrassing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think I could have placed John Malkovich. I know that I've seen a lot of his movies, but for some reason, like, I can never picture him when someone says his name. So the whole movie, I was like, who is this guy? He's great. I want more of him. But I was like, it's fucking John Malkovich, Austin, you're a moron.
I love that you loved his performance, though, because he's, like, supposed to be such a despicable dude.
I thought he was the most interesting of the bunch. I liked him.
I respect that. And he honestly has a great plan. He's thought of all the contingencies. He's the brains of the operation.
I would like to talk about how he made this plan, because that I was a little unclear on.
Let's do it. Get into it.
So I think the Colombian drug lord person sent him a secret code letter in jail. And then he also somehow was able to rig a bomb to make his cell explode. That I'm not sure how he was able to do.
I think what happened is that him and the criminal's drug lord's father had obviously been in communication through their lawyers for like a long time planning this, years, if not months, I guess. And yeah, they communicated by code through lawyers' correspondence and had paintings with the eyes poked out that lined up to read certain messages, right? Yeah. So obviously throughout this planning phase, he got airplane schematics, he got the anarchist cookbook, so bomb making supplies. So, like, they got him supplies and books, and he hid it behind a fake wall in his cell. So the only thing they really needed to escape was pins, right? Like almost like safety pins, which him and Ving Rhames had hidden by pushing them into the skin of their palms. And they took those out, they picked their locks, they got out, overpowered the guards, and took control of the plane. And so the plan was...
Dave Chappelle had swallowed matches so that he could pull it out and light a fire to distract the guards.
Yeah, that's how they got them to come back from like the
that
cage.
Stuff I understood. It was more the like, how did this guy figure out how to commandeer a U.S. Marshal airplane from prison? I understand that they're communicating by I call bullshit. That is the one thing I call bullshit on in this movie.
I guess, like, we know that John Malkovich's character is, like, a criminal genius psychopath. And he's in jail, and he has nothing else to do but sit around and come up with plans. You know what I mean? So I guess he just worked on a bunch and was like, this one seems like the best shot. Why not? If it all goes to hell, then what? I'm just still in jail. Like, nothing will change.
And it also seems like the plane that they use to transport people around is kind of standard. So he just knew that if he got the guards past the gate and they didn't have their handcuffs on, then it's like hand-to-hand combat because they're not allowed to have guns, which everyone seems to know. And all they have is like batons. So it seemed like a decent enough plan. It gets kind of confusing when they have to land.
Yes.
Because John Malkovich says they're going to switch planes, but I think he thought the drug lord was going to come in a separate plane and pick everybody up and take him away. But the drug lord tries to double cross him, and they only have a small private jet for just the drug lord's son. So then they have to use their old plane. I don't know. That it really kind of falls apart.
I feel like I missed
what
all
they
of
were
that.
going to do. Yeah. Because even when the plane is landed, they're supposed to refuel it, and they never do. But somehow they can still take off again. But we'll get there. That whole part when the plane is on the ground is bonkers bananas, and there's so many problems. But I want to try and get more through the beginning of the movie before we get there.
Yeah, so before we get to that, I was going to say the part where the plan falls apart for me, like in my head, is before they land to switch planes, but when they first land in Carson City to have some prisoners get off and then others get on. And they have to fake all of that because they've taken over the plane and they've taken over the guards or whatever. So I'm kind of like, why didn't you wait to do that until after you left Carson City? That seems like a lot easier than trying to like sneak the wrong people off the plane and you're pretending to be a guard. Why didn't you just wait? And then the drug lord's son was being picked up in Carson City, so they couldn't have just skipped that stop and gone straight to the switch point. So they really could have just waited.
That's an excellent point.
Very good point.
Save themselves a lot of trouble. I mean, then you wouldn't really get, like, cool, dramatic scenes, I guess, but they didn't think that through.
Guess what? Cyrus the Virus just got outsmarted by Jen, the person.
Aw.
I know.
I was waiting for my cool nickname. I was like, come on, what is it? Oh, also, I do want to talk, while we're still kind of going over the criminals. Ving Rhames' character, I don't understand why he's going to the worst of the worst prison with the rest of them. They're like, this guy's a serial killer. That guy's a serial killer. This guy's a Black Panther who, like, killed a bunch of NRA members. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably not a bad thing. Like, no offense, NRA members. They're also, as we know, a lot of them white supremacists.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's okay, offense, NRA members.
Yeah, that's not as horrible as what the others have done.
I mean, he is a terrorist.
Yeah.
And killed a lot of people. So, like, maybe the judge was still like, yeah, wink, wink, I get it. But also, you can't just get away with something like that.
I mean, I guess in the world where Nicolas Cage is getting extra punishment for being in the military, I could maybe buy that Ving Rhames is considered the worst of the worst. But again, like, he just killed NRA members. Like,
I mean, it's the same way that this is more accurate. The justice system doesn't work by punishing military people to the extreme, but it does work by punishing Black people to the extreme.
That is true. That is true. I just felt like I personally did not consider him to be the worst of the worst.
No, he definitely is not. Although he proves to be pretty bad throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
He wants to kill everyone. He's definitely, again, has kind of a chaotic vibe like Cyrus does. But I think they've really underused Ving Rhames. Like, he doesn't get a lot of opportunity to have a line or express an emotion. He's just like convict A. Like, he could have been played by anyone. And it's just too bad because Ving Rhames is amazing. He's so great. Other criminals, we have that another guy who's a mass murderer who's super boring. His name's Billy Bedlam.
Yeah.
Like, don't care about that guy. We have Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle as just like a random like drug addict, I guess, who's somehow also going to the worst of the worst prison.
Yeah, that one doesn't make as much sense either. His name's Pinball, and they literally just call him like a crackhead the entire time.
Yeah.
But they don't really provide his backstory, so we can assume he did something bad enough
to qualify for this prison, super bad prison. But it's just, again, some of these people on this flight, I'm sort of like, you seem like a regular criminal, and then some of the people on the flight are like Danny Trejo's character, who's just the rapist, just spends the whole movie trying to rape somebody, and that's his whole character arc. Hello, I am the rapist. I like to rape. I will be raping you now. And it's like, what the fuck?
Oh my god. That is it. Boom. Character defined and done. That is his whole thing. He is a penis, and that's what it wants.
This is a movie that I watched repeatedly as a child.
I know. I don't think I understood.
Same. I don't think I fully understood. Like, I know he's, Johnny 23. He's got marks on his arms for all the victims, and he says to the female guard, like, I got a spot for you, I'm gonna mark you, and, like, I don't know if young me just thought he was killing, but, like, he was clearly
Just.
worse somehow. Yeah. Yeah.
He also says they'd call me Johnny 600 if they knew the truth.
Oh, sorry, I
So-
forgot.
Yeah. Which is a real, honestly, obviously it's terrible and awful, but it's also a shame because Danny Trejo is so sweet
Yeah.
and like nice in real life. And I only associated him with this movie until like 2 years ago. And I was like, that guy's a bad dude. He's a bad dude. And then I'm like, oh no, he's so smart and nice and fun and sweet. That's like, I
Yeah.
know it's acting, but still he was poisoned in my mind from this role for a really long time.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you know, with Ving Rhames too. It's like some of these characters have a lot more depth than others. So like John Malkovich, really, his bad guy gets to do a lot, whereas some of these other bad guys are just very one-dimensional. I am a bad guy, and then Danny Trejo kind of gets stuck with just one-dimensional. I'm the worst guy. Like, even of this plane full of criminals, I'm the one that they all consider the villain and are trying to stop.
Right? Like, because his crime is an immediate problem. Everyone else is like, yeah, I killed a bunch of people, but probably not at this moment. I'm not a threat.
Yeah.
But this guy's like a psycho who cannot be stopped.
Yeah, and like, again, we're jumping ahead, but there's a scene kind of late in the movie where he comes back to the plane to try to assault the woman again, and I'm like, time and a place, buddy. There's a shootout happening outside, and you're still like, it is rape o'clock.
Totally. This is like the penultimate battle between the guards and the army and all the prisoners. And yeah, he very slowly and calmly walks away from the hail of bullets in that like criminal bad guy way where he just saunters over to the plane and he's just like, I think this is it. This is my moment. I think it's like, yeah, rape o'clock is the perfect term that I hate so much. But yeah, he's like, oh, look at the time. It's rape o'clock. Goodbye.
Ugh.
Have fun at the battle.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems with this character, and also I think mostly just the realization that I watched this so much as a child, and it must have imprinted on me in some way, and I'm like, why?
Can I tell you that there is a person in this movie I hate more than Danny Trejo? And that is, I call him Transporter Chief O'Brien. He's the curly-haired, Malloy DEA guy.
Yeah,
Who
with
is
the
just-
convertible.
Oh, I hate this movie for having him in it. Like, I like that guy, the actor, but the way him and John Cusack just yell at each other, their
Yes.
posturing is worse than the criminal posturing.
Yes.
It's so, they're having their own power struggle, but who's in charge? And John Cusack is presented as a smarter guy, an educated guy, and he has all these ideas about how it should go. And then Transporter Chief O'Brien is just like the bull who's like, I know what I'm doing, get the fuck out of the way. And he makes all the wrong choices and sticks to his wrong choices, even in the face of like empirical evidence. And that is the most frustrating character type. Every time I run into that character type in movies, if they spend too much time on that guy, it ruins it for me. Like, it almost ruins the whole movie because he is such an abrasive, frustrating person. And I know the movie depends on people not being able to catch the criminals and like they have to let them get away multiple times or else what's the movie? But when it comes down to one person choosing wrong obstinately and being stupid, and that's the mechanism through which they escape every time, it gets so annoying so quickly. So I hate that guy.
Right. So his big thing is they're following like the transponder box, but someone has ripped it out and it's in like a small plane or something now. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's
so
in
when
like a
they
little
stopped-
touristy plane.
When they stopped at Carson City to pick up the new criminals and do that little switcheroo, Dave Chappelle took the transponder box and ran and put it on like a tourist plane that is also at that same airport as the big criminal switch with all the cops around. Dave Chappelle was able just to sneak away and go do that. And then a bunch of tourists came to get on their little Arizona flight tour plane that was in that airport, even though when they were doing the prisoner swap 5 minutes ago, there was a sandstorm.
Also, wouldn't they close the part of the airport where the prisoner
Yes!
swap is happening?
Yes! That's why I'm like, Dave Chappelle just walks over to where the other planes are, where there's apparently just a functioning, like, tourist flight airport happening. People can go sightseeing in their little planes, and they're like, oh, what do you see over there? I see serial killer Steve Buscemi. What about you?
Also, he misses getting back on the plane. I'm like, hey, Dave Chappelle, why don't you prioritize getting back on the plane that is flying you to Caribbean paradise versus flirting with some rando you find in the hangar. But
He
he's
also
just like,
momentarily is running alongside the plane, keeping up with the plane for a moment.
yeah, and then the guy he set on fire is the one who notices him. Because that's how, they get a distraction by Pinball lighting someone on fire. And I kind of like that it calls it back when he's running by the plane. He's like, help, stop the plane. And the guy just looks at him and he's like, get fucked. You set me on fire.
Yeah.
I'm not helping you. And then he gives him the finger. And it's a kind of a funny moment because you find out later he actually gets caught up in the landing gear.
Yeah, it was like he gets sucked
dies.
into the plane.
Yeah. Which is a pretty quick and brutal death for Dave Chappelle. You think he would have more of a role in this movie, but...
Because at first, you think he just doesn't make the plane and he's stuck at the airport, and you're kind of like, haha, that sucks for him.
Yeah.
But they needed a dead body to come in handy later, so there he was.
Yeah, I was happy to see it because initially when he was running alongside the plane, and then I thought that he just lost the plane or whatever and didn't make it. But then they show the plane taking off from the front and there's no one nearby, and I'm like, well, where'd Dave Chappelle go? That is a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake.
Nope, he went.
He was
right
half inside and half outside of the plane.
It's a pretty brutal death. You gotta wonder,
Yeah.
did he die from being crushed, or did he die from freezing, or did he die from suffocating?
Combination of all of the above.
Yeah, good question. I feel like the crushing.
Also, if the guy is stuck in the landing gear and so the flap is half open, do you think it's reasonable that Cameron Poe and Ving Rhames could just go down there and walk around there and have a conversation and there wouldn't be any breeze or noise? They're just like, you do it, no, you do it. And then Ving Rhames starts going through people's personal effects and I'm like, wouldn't it be cold and no oxygen and really thin atmosphere
And loud
and breezy and kind of chaotic? No, oh, it's just normal. Okay. And then the way he gets Pinball's body out is by stomping on it. I'm like, you're stomping on something that will disappear and then there will be a hole and your foot goes in that hole. What are you doing? You're gonna fall out of this plane.
Okay.
That is such a stressful idea.
Can we break down this whole scene? Because I have so many, what? So basically, the pilot and John Malkovich figure out that there's something wrong with the landing gear. They send Ving Rhames to check. Ving Rhames decides he's going to send Cameron Poe to check. So Nicolas Cage goes down there. Ving Rhames also goes down there anyway. They discover Pinball's dead body. Ving Rhames goes, okay, I'm going to turn my back to you and just let you do whatever, so that Nicolas Cage can write a note to the police and then throw the body down. So I'm like, Ving Rhames, why did you go down there? This whole scene would have made so much more sense if you just sent Nicolas Cage to do it and stayed up top, and then Nicolas Cage could have secretly written the note and no one would have known.
I think it needed to be more sneaky. He needed to have more of an imminent threat. It couldn't just be this is really easy. No time crunch, no concern. I'll just write a note. It'll be a big, long missive on Pinball. Dear
With the
Detective
Sharpie
Larkin.
that was handily in his pockets.
But yeah, you're right. Because he doesn't want to go down there, so he makes Cameron Poe go. But I think he just wanted someone to go first. Ving Rhames is just being... Because when they first open... Yeah, when they first open the thing, it is loud and windy, and you can tell something's wrong. So he wants someone to go down. If they get sucked out of the plane, then he knows that maybe he shouldn't go down there. But yeah, you're right. It is pretty useless. And I mean, it does make sense for him to turn his back because he starts going through all their personal effects. And who knows what you can find in there? Cigarettes or something? It's a gold mine. He ends up getting sunglasses, which is really cool.
And then he ends up getting skewered.
Skewered? No, that's Billy Bedlam.
No, that's Billy.
Oh.
So we're talking about when they find Pinball, it's Ving Rhames, the Black
No, I don't know who
Panther
that is.
terrorist
As if you think that I know who that is.
You don't know who Ving Rhames is?
That's the first time they go down there. They get rid of the body. Later on, Billy Bedlam starts to suspect something about Cameron Poe, about the way he interacts with everyone and the way he's trying to protect the guards a little subtly. Billy Bedlam's like, there's something off about you. You said you were in for 15 years, but it doesn't seem right. For some reason, he starts to suspect Cameron is working against them.
Yeah, he says, you were in, but then you would have been in my block of the prison and I've never seen you before, or something like that.
So if you were supposed to be for 15 years, you would have been in Block D, and I was in Block D, and I never saw you. So he suspects that something's wrong. So at one point, they, make weird eye contact, and then Billy goes under, And then Cameron Poe's like, I better check on what he's doing. And he goes down and Billy is looking through
Yeah,
Cameron's
okay,
stuff and he
conflated
finds
the
his
two.
parolee letter.
And the iconic line, put the bunny back in the box.
Followed with, you should have put the bunny back in the box.
You know what's really funny to me, honestly? So I conflated the two scenes, but what's confusing to me is that, spoiler alert, I enjoyed this movie more than I liked Cliffhanger. But I think it's because...
I'm sorry, what? Really?
Yeah.
That blows my mind, because this movie is all about modes of transportation and them exploding. And I thought
But
Austin
I
would
think-
hate that.
I think genuinely it's because you both set it up as if this was like the worst thing that's ever been made and that I was gonna like just take issue with every single line of dialogue. So I think I had just built it up as like the worst possible thing, and I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. But I also put off watching it and was like not looking forward to watching it, and I think I just really zoned out in it. So like all these intricacies of the plot, you guys have said like 10 things where I'm like, what? So I have no idea.
But when I miss one gorilla scene, I never hear the end of it. Austin misses all of Conair. She didn't even notice like there was a black man in it. She's like, what? Ving Rhames? Who's that? But no.
To be fair, it was a gorilla in the midst of a bunch of people. Austin's missing intricacies of a bunch of criminals fighting. It was like a tornado and she missed one thing. Yours was like an open plane and you missed a gorilla. So
No.
Thank you,
I think Austin's is worse. She missed all of Conair.
Since I'm the
I
judge,
got all the high
self-appointed.
points. I got all the key points and then just let everything else just kind of simmer.
But yeah, I mean,
That
that's
is
fair.
the key to Austin liking an action movie, apparently. She just has to not watch
Not
it
watch
fully.
I watched it. I think I just glazed over.
I mean, I will say this movie encourages that. Like, it's not a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
Some action movies have, like, I will say, some have a plot. Some are very plot driven, and some have an intricate, interesting, convoluted plot that draws you in. This is not that movie. This is the opposite. This is like plane go up, plane go down, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah,
movie.
exactly. I got the gist. I got the main. I got all
Yeah,
that.
there's a plane. Yeah, it's full of cons. He says, welcome to Conair. Boom.
And
Moving
then
on.
he says, thank you for flying, Conair, once they all leave. And I was like, this movie is amazing.
Right?
Said the name of the movie twice. That's perfect.
Oh, God. I love John Malkovich so much.
I do have a note that backs up what I was just trying to say, because I was like, I have no idea what's happening with all of these explosions, ... and I do not care.
That sounds accurate. I mean, we're not really invested in anyone. We're supposed to care about Cameron Poe, but no one really does. Like, even his wife and kid don't really like him that much. He's just a dude.
Can we talk about the wife and daughter for a second? Because they're just waiting at the airport for him to come, and then they find out there's an issue with the plane. And then, like, John Cusack personally goes to speak to them to try to look for clues for some reason. And then at the end, they get flown to the scene of the crash site to reunite with him in person. And I'm like, hold on. They would be told to go wait at home until this is over.
Yeah, and I don't know why John Cusack immediately zeroes in on Cameron Poe as being his one great white hope. He's just like, oh, an army ranger in jail? That cannot be. He must be a secret undercover man. Like, it doesn't make any sense why he all of a sudden is like, this is the one. Like, Baby O's just a kind of a white-collar criminal, seemingly. Like, it could be anybody. There's a bunch of random dudes.
Yeah, I did wonder about Baby O, because they never really say what he did. And I also, Jackie, you mentioned earlier that he was getting transferred to a different prison. I assumed he was going to the super bad guy prison with everyone else on the plane. So I was like, what the fuck did Baby O do? Like, what is he a secret baby murderer? Is that how he got that nickname?
Baby, oh no. Maybe, but I mean, I think they made it clear that Baby O has got to be an innocent guy, because otherwise Cameron Poe wouldn't be his best friend.
But innocent people get caught up in the system. We know that. He could still be an innocent guy, but being sent to the super bad prison because they think he did something super bad.
Yeah, they say straight out in the beginning that he's going to like a lesser prison or a step down prison, or like he's also on the road to being released. He's not a lifer like the rest of them.
Okay.
But there are a couple other random people who are supposed to get off in Carson City, right? So the people getting
That's
off
true,
in Carson City are not the bad ones.
Yeah.
They're just like the hitch a ride ones. And I think, but you know what? That doesn't make sense either, because neither Baby O or Cameron Poe were supposed to get off in Carson City. So that doesn't
Also,
make sense either.
That is one thing that I took issue with on behalf of Cameron Poe and Baby O, that I was like, they didn't ask for this shit. Shut up, John Malkovich. Not everyone wants this plan. Like, fuck off. Like, don't put everyone else in this position. They're just trying to do their time and, like, get out. They don't need this.
Yeah, but he's not actually doing it to free them. He's doing it to get money from the drug lord for freeing his son.
No,
so,
I know, but then it's
they're all
also
collateral damage.
putting everyone else, like, say Poe wasn't able to communicate with John Cusack on the ground, they'll just probably assume that he had something to do with it as well, and then, like, everyone's going back to jail. Like, just fucked everything up.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But I don't think John Malkovich cares. Like Jackie said, collateral damage. You're either with the plan and you're coming to the Caribbean, or I will kill you in this random airport in the middle of nowhere.
I recognize that.
No, I know.
Just saying, that sucks.
It does suck. So that is why Nicolas Cage, his original plan was, if Baby O wasn't dying of diabetes, to, like, sneak off. So they were supposed to, like, take off and, like, not be caught up in this.
Well, yeah, and then, so him and Baby O were going to sneak off. They won't let Baby O go because he's black and they're expecting white people.
Can we rename Baby O? I don't want to have to keep saying it.
Let's call him Diabetes. All right. So Cameron Poe and Mr. Diabetes are trying to get off the plane, but he can't because he's black and they're expecting white prisoners. So because Diabetes can't get off the plane, Cameron Poe is going to go and tell them, stop, plane full of criminals. But they gag everybody, so he decides not to go. Which, he finds the tape recorder after that. I was going to say he could have just put the tape recorder in his own jacket and still gotten off and gotten attention and given it to them, but I think he finds that at the last minute. He hides it in one of the guards' sweaters. All the guards get taken off, bagged and gagged, or what they call it, when they put tape over their mouth and like a hood over them. Anyway, at that point, pretty soon after the guards are taken off the plane, one of the guards hits one of the prisoners and the tape recorder falls out and they realize that the plane is taken over. So this is the first step. I guess this is how Larkin zeroes in on Cameron Poe as a potential ally, because the guard said that Poe put the recorder in his shirt. So, okay, I just answered my own question. Right.
Yeah. So I have a question about this.
Yes.
When they realized that Diabetes can't sneak off the plane in the place as one of the guys because they need white guys, there were other people that were getting off that weren't like the had to sneak off that they had to cover were because they were killed in the shootout. So they were like, they're dead, they can't get off the plane, we need someone to fill in their place. People who weren't killed in the shootout, some of them were black. So why didn't Diabetes just go, hey, do you want to go to the Caribbean paradise? Stay on the plane, I'll take your place, and go to jails.
Interesting. Maybe they just didn't think of it, and also maybe those guys didn't want to go to the Caribbean. Maybe they were just like also going to their step-down prison, and they're like, I'd rather not. Yeah. I just want to do my 1 year.
Yeah, I was just saying, maybe they've got 1 year left, and they're like, I don't want to fuck this up right now. Like, please, I don't want to get caught up in whatever Cyrus the Virus is up to. Not a man I want to follow.
Right? He doesn't have like one of those names that inspires leadership. But we also forgot to mention that there's a secret DEA agent on the plane who's supposed to interrogate the drug lord's son, and they won't let him have a gun, but then fucking Transporter Chief O'Brien sneaks him a gun. That's why there ends up being this shootout that kills like 3 other prisoners, because there's not supposed to be guns on the plane for basically this exact reason, but he brings one on.
Yeah.
And yeah, that does cause some issues. That's why it gets all confusing about who's staying on, who's getting off. And also I think a guard dies. I don't remember. A lot of people die in this movie. A lot of nameless people die, which is another thing I have trouble with in movies sometimes, when they just have an assortment of characters all dressed similarly and they all get kind of shot. I'm like, who was that? Am I supposed to know? Was that a big deal? Like, I like when they're more distinct and there's a reason behind them being shot.
Well, they have more impact that way.
Yeah. This is not a movie looking for impact, except for planes with the ground.
Well, speaking of impact, can we talk about Dave Chappelle falling from the sky?
Yeah.
Onto the car. Amaze.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And then threw him out of the plane. Would his body have been intact enough for them to read that note?
So basically the body explodes like a balloon from that height. Theoretically, the t-shirt could still be intact. But more likely it would explode with the body exploding. But yeah, it would basically be shreds and shards of body. The way that the body impacted, that's like jumping from the top of a building type impact. If you
Yeah.
jump from a plane, I mean, there is terminal velocity, so you can only go a certain speed. But there's nothing slowing him down. There's obviously no parachute. There's no like flailing even of an alive person, which wouldn't really slow you down, but you can get some air resistance from it. But still, no. Explosion. That's all it is. He would be a puddle. Theoretically, you could pick the shirt out of the puddle, piece it together, and be like, oh, there's a note on this shirt. But really, like, no, it's a terrible plan, and it would not work.
I also assume the two people in the car probably would have died as well, but it's fine.
If it hit the hood like it did, and it was just a straight down, but something doesn't fall straight down. It falls at an angle. So yeah, they probably would have died pretty hard. And I do really hate that couple who are whining about their car wash. So I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm happy your car gets smoked. They would die, however, from the like next 3 cars hitting them. I don't know if you noticed that, but one like broadsides the passenger side, and I'm like, that person's dead. But then they show them alive and fine. But still, yeah, Austin, you're very right. I have a big problem with that scene. It doesn't make sense. Also, it's a really risky fucking move. You could have killed so many people by dropping Dave Chappelle out of that plane.
Yeah. There's no regard for human life in this movie. They're just like, what if anyone around us just has to die? Like, I'm sorry.
I guess so. But not Baby-O. But like every other innocent civilian in America is fair game.
Well, I know Baby-O, so that's why I care if he lives. But, you know,
right.
Regular people, they can all die.
See, he says it all the time. He's like, no man left behind, no man left behind. And yet he lets like, when they land in Lerner Airfield and they're planning their big stand against the police, there's literally like 20 cars of military guys coming in. And Camera Pro literally goes, fuck those guys. I got to go take care of Baby-O. And I'm like, I mean, Baby-O's not actively dead. These guys are coming into a trap and they're your brothers in arms and you don't give a shit. You're literally like, bye. Your priorities are completely out of whack. You're like a straight bad dude. You're bad.
Yeah.
However, he's presented as the hero. So we're supposed to be like, wow, that's brave. Good for you. You're great. We're kind of jumping all over.
We really are, but I think it's because this movie is so much and there's so much. So it's really hard to like focus on one particular thing.
I guess what happens next is like, yeah, they go to Lerner Airfield, which is the site of the most on the ground combat.
Yeah.
This is my biggest problem with this movie. And it's not something that no one has ever said before. Everyone makes this point when they talk about the movie. But basically, they land in Lerner Airfield. Someone sees that there's cars coming from very far away. They say, we have 10 to 12 minutes until those cars get here. And in that time, they move a plane with their bare hands. They dig trenches with explosives. They make a trench out of like crunched cars so that the cops have to come through this one path. They organize people with rifles on all the sides, and then they also explode a gas tank. So this is 12 minutes they're supposed to do all this stuff in. It's the most annoying thing. It's impossible. It makes me crazy. If they had to do one of those things in 10 to 12 minutes, maybe. But they do 8.5 hours worth of work in 10 minutes.
Listen, they're just really efficient. They've been doing that like jail yard labor. They're all pumped up. They know how to get shit done.
Ugh. You know that I need things to make sense in my movies. The fact that I consider this one of my favorite movies is despite the complete nonsense.
Goes against everything you believe in.
Can we talk about what happened at the airfield before they landed? Because John Cusack arrives there and kind of finds that in the tower, someone has been killed. And then there's another plane that's landing with a regular guy who's sort of like, what's going on here? And then all of the like drug lord people were like hiding in a bunker with a plane. So I'm like, what is the series of events? What was the plan at this airfield?
So the way I understand it is that Cyrus is under the impression there'll be another like 747 that they're all going to get on. But he's been double crossed. The drug lords have a private jet. They killed the guy in the tower. And the guy landing his plane is just a random dude coming up. He wasn't like expected or intended to come there. He's just like, hey, I'm landing. Is anyone there? And they're like, silence. So then the drug lords were going to ambush the prisoners or somehow get the son and drive away without them noticing and take off and abandon them. But I did wonder that too the first time I was watching it, whatever, a couple days ago. And I was like, who killed the tower guy? Like, where did that come from? But then I concluded together that it's these drug lords just sneaking around behind the scenes, fucking everything up.
Right, because I was trying to figure out, like, if that plane was landing there with the random guy who's just wrong place, wrong time, I had assumed that he'd also taken off from that airport, which isn't necessarily true. But I was like, well then what, was it only a couple of hours that the drug lords, like, got there with their plane and then killed the guy and then went and parked it somewhere? Like...
I mean, that could
there's
be
also true, but there's also, like, an old man hiding under a car that Nicolas Cage runs into, and I'm like, where'd you come from?
The whole concept of this airfield doesn't make sense.
You guys are confusing me more and more. Honestly, guys, you gotta watch the movie the way I watch this movie, which I feel like is the way Jackie usually watches movies, where it's just like, yes. Just always say yes. Everything makes sense.
See, these types of movies is where I get into it. I'm like,
this one I'm like, I have no idea. They landed and they started shooting at each other, and then Steve Buscemi fucked off to hang with a kid for a while, and then...
Oh yeah, because the airfield is right next to an abandoned trailer park with one small girl living there.
Yeah, she's the only inhabitant of this town. And then there's a random guy under the car. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. John Cusack somehow has a plan to take on all of these criminals all by himself in a little convertible. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think I enjoyed this movie more when I watched it because I was just like, everything's fine. And now that we're getting into the nitty gritty, I'm starting to like it less and less.
But I wish they just made more sense about what this Lerner airfield is. It looks like an abandoned city, but also has people living there. Also a functioning gas station, also a bar, and like a child. And yet multiple buildings that look like they were made in like the 20s and have gone to ruin.
Yeah, it looks like a ghost town, basically. Which, if that was what it was, I would buy it. They're like, we found this abandoned airfield, that's where we're going to do the switch. I'm like, okay, great. But then you have that random guy who's also trying to land the plane, so they have to have their Conair plane, like, bounce over it, which is hilarious. And then you have the trailer park with the little girl Steve Buscemi has a tea party with, which, again, iconic scene. When I was young, this terrified the hell out of me. I was like, oh my god, he eats the little girl. I remember thinking he ate the little girl.
This is like one of the few scenes that I did know about, and I just assumed she died. I was like, great, oh, we're going there. Great.
It would have been better if she died.
Yeah, I was like, she doesn't, he doesn't kill her. It's like a little twist or whatever, but I 100% was like, he kills and eats this child. I don't think they ever called him a cannibal, but I assumed he ate the child.
It was the mask at the beginning. It just... screams cannibal.
Yeah. But, like, don't you think he should have? Isn't it a weird character break that he doesn't? Like, why wouldn't he?
But that's what I kind of like. His character is so fucking weird, where he can be so civilized and calm on the plane, but you know he's capable of such depraved stuff. Like, I like that he can pick and choose when to be it. Versus some of the other people on the plane, Danny Trejo, who don't know how to turn things off.
I guess that's true. Maybe that makes him scarier, but I don't like it as much because to me it's kind of trying to say, like, is he better? Is he like learning and growing? And I'm like, nah, that's not his thing. And then at the end, spoiler alert, he's like the one guy from the plane who gets away and goes a gambling in Vegas. So I'm like, so he's just gonna go on another murder rampage? We're all agreeing on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, we're not supposed to believe that he's better, right? He's still a bad dude.
Yeah.
Good.
They're gonna figure out, once they go through all that wreckage and count the bodies, when they realize Buscemi's the one who escaped, they're gonna be like, oh, we fucked.
Yeah, shit. Also, do you think the casinos would still be functioning if a plane just crashed into 8 out of 10 casinos?
Yeah, he just walks a little further down the strip.
Yeah, and they're just like, business as usual.
I mean, maybe. It is Vegas. They're like, top dollar wins. You got money, we'll keep going.
What happens in Vegas stays on the strip.
That is the saying.
I kind of thought the thing would cut me off before I had to finish that sentence.
My next notes are about Vegas. Is there more between the Lerner Airfield and Vegas?
We can dive into Vegas. I'm sure we'll go back and fill in gaps so we remember more insane things that happen. But what I want to bring up is that Conair is flying, and they're over the middle of the desert, and the bad DEA guy is like, let's shoot them down. And then John Cusack is like, no, there's good people on there. We're not going to shoot them down. And then he's like, okay. So then instead they let them crash into Las Vegas.
I know. Yeah.
Like,
I know.
Yeah, it sucks to shoot them down and kill Nicolas Cage and Baby O and some of the guards who weren't necessarily bad people, but, like, the alternative is millions of civilians.
The real issue I have is that outside of, like, a couple square miles of Vegas is desert.
Yeah.
They could have very easily just landed in I don't know why they decided the Las Vegas Strip was where they had to land.
I mean, I know that the Las Vegas airport, because I think they ask, like, do we have enough to get to the airport? And they say no, or something like that. The Las Vegas airport is right beside the fucking Strip. Like, you can see the Strip from the runway at the Las Vegas
just
airport.
like if they turn 90 degrees in the air.
That's what I mean.
You're
like,
fine.
It's literally super close. So, like, if they could make it to the Strip, they could make it to the airport, is my theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, like Jackie said, when they're flying over the desert and they're like, no, don't shoot them, he could have just said, okay, start bringing down now. Like, here in the desert. Like, don't try to make it to the airport. Like, just, let's get her down right here in the desert and nobody dies. But instead, they're just like, Vegas! And, like, crash the plane into 9 casinos, like Jackie said, and destroy buildings, skid along the street, cars.
Yep. All the pedestrians are dead. All the people in cars are dead. And Vegas is a pedestrian and car heavy city. Like, there's never a time that there's not full traffic of both pedestrian and cars. So everybody is dead. Conservatively, 200 people.
Oh, minimum, yeah. Plus all the
Like,
property damage. Like, they're flying into casinos. Like,
it is irresponsible that they didn't shoot down that plane. I'm fully in favor of shooting down that plane.
That's like, I can't believe this movie made me side with the dickhead DEA guy.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, that was the right call. Like, like I said, it sucks that a couple okay people would die, but comparatively, human life, like, legitimately, this would be one of, like, the biggest aviation disasters in American history.
Yeah.
Right. Totally.
Insane, the level of carnage that John Cusack allows to happen because he wants to reunite one man with his daughter.
And then he jokes about it at the end. Like, he's so nonchalant. Like, that probably wasn't a great idea.
I think you're going to jail, John Cusack. Like, I think you are arrested for this. You made the call that this plane would kill everyone and break Vegas apart. So, like, you're going to jail. Like, enjoy writing Conair yourself, bro.
And, like, you know, earlier in the movie, he was the one who was sort of correct about things. The other, like, dickhead DEA was like, I'm going to shoot down that Arizona tourist plane, and I don't believe you that they're at a different airfield or whatever. But I'm like, even if he had accidentally shot down that Arizona tourist plane, less people would have died than what John Cusack just did.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the worst. Like, I guess you can't blame him because he didn't know that they were going to smash into Vegas. But still, he should have downed that plane.
And then after they crash horribly into Vegas, Nicolas Cage is kind of just walking around, like, he helps Baby O get to the paramedics, and then he sees John Malkovich escape and goes and chases after him. And I'm like, you just crashed this plane. Apparently, A, you're fine. Like, you're not injured in any way.
Everyone should be dead. We're fine.
And B, like, the police or paramedics have no interest in you. They're just like, excuse me, sir. This to the side, please. If you want to steal that motorcycle and go chase a guy, that's fine.
Yeah. You're not still under arrest. Like, this, he isn't even on parole, technically. He's still a criminal.
Yeah, he's still a
jail.
prisoner.
Yeah, so, like, they should care more.
Yeah, John Cusack's like, my new BFF here. Let's go rob some motorcycles, or steal some motorcycles and catch John Malkovich.
And John Cusack, who is, like, a law enforcement agent, sees John Malkovich, and he doesn't, like, tell anyone. He just also goes to grab a motorcycle to be a hero, like Nicolas Cage. They kind of give each other a little look, like, oh, hey buddy. And then they take off, and I'm like, could you maybe, like, you're surrounded by so much police right now, just shout, like, he's getting away.
Yeah.
Look at that fire truck.
Also, the cop motorcycles have radios on them.
Yep.
So you could very easily tell people what's going on. Can we just go through Cyrus's death? I really wanted to know what you thought of this, Austin, because the plane crashes and you're kind of supposed to think that that's the end of the movie. Like, plane down, everyone arrested. But then you see John Malkovich get onto a fire truck, which I think is driven by another criminal, right?
Yeah, the pilot is driving, and then John Malkovich and Ving Rhames, I think, both escape with him.
Right. So then I was like, when that happened, did your heart just sink? Were you like, great, another chase on another type of vehicle?
I was just so neutral, Jackie. I can't express to you how just like, it's fine.
Were you stoned watching this movie?
I was surprisingly calm watching this movie.
Austin took like 3 Vicodin before. I was just like,
She's like, everything is awesome.
Love it. This movie's so great.
You know, honestly, before I hit play and I realized it was under 2 hours, I was like, everything's fine. I'm gonna be okay.
It's so close to 2 hours. It's like 1:57 or something.
She's like, good enough. I can handle 1:57.
Yeah.
If it was 2:01, I would have lost my mind.
Those extra 4 minutes would have made it just unbearable.
Okay, but so
I mean, yeah, it was. I was already checked out. Honestly, I was like, okay, it's over. We're done. Oh no, we got the fake out. We got one more chase to get there.
I don't know why they decided we needed this, but there's a fire truck motorcycle chase.
Yeah.
And then Nicolas Cage is like hanging off the ladder of the fire truck, stabbing upwards with a broken stick.
There's a really funny shot from like the front. I think it's when John Cusack's getting onto the truck as well. There's a shot you just see Nicolas Cage hanging from the back ladder and he's just like flying around like a rag doll because it's clearly a rag doll. But it was very funny.
But like John Cusack like tries to flood the driver's cab with water from the fire hose. I don't know what happens to Ving Rhames. He just flies off into some.
Yeah, I didn't know he was there, so there we go.
Yeah, I think he gets knocked off and killed maybe, but also like John Cusack filling the driver's seat with water. I'm like, are we in the Three Stooges now? This is how you're taking down a criminal? Like, what are you doing?
Doesn't he have a gun? Shouldn't he have a gun?
Maybe he lost it at this point.
Oh God. Okay, so like.
Or maybe he didn't want to shoot a guy driving a fire truck because that would be reckless. It could crash.
Ooh, yeah. And John Cusack himself might get hurt. That's the difference.
True,
200 Vegas civilians, not so important. But John Cusack's own skin, can't risk that. But my big problem with this is that Cyrus dies in like 4 different ways. He gets stabbed. Then he gets handcuffed to the ladder of the fire truck and then is like driven through a building.
Yeah, it's like a pedestrian overpass or something.
Yeah, he goes like through it. And then somehow his handcuff goes off. So he falls through the roof of a building into machinery. And then a giant machine that just pounds things, apparently, just pounds his head and he dies.
The machinery that's not being operated by anyone. It's just...
It looks like it's an abandoned factory. Yeah.
It's just going on its own.
Maybe when he fell, his body hit the on switch on its way down. It like pulled a lever.
So Wile E. Coyote of him. He was like,
That's what I mean. This like
Final Destination
fire truck death scene just turns into pure like comedy.
It's amazing. Like there's so many ways that he dies. Like altogether, he sustains like 74 mortal injuries before.
Not even mentioning he should have died like in the plane crash. Like, did you add that in your death count?
No, somehow everyone on the plane was fine. The only person injured was Baby O, but that's just because he was in like diabetic shock.
And he was also shot.
Oh, right.
In his defense.
I forgot that he got shot trying to take the fall for Nicolas Cage because why exactly? Like,
because I'm like, who contacted Larkin, right? Like, how did they know that we were going to be at Lerner Airfield?
Yes, they were like, there's a snake here, and then Baby O was like, let me throw myself in front of Nicolas Cage to get shot.
And and they're all like, you're clearly lying because you've been sitting here dying for the last 2 hours, so...
Yeah. And he's like, no, but he is the white main character, and I am the black best friend, so I am the one that you will shoot. Thank you.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they were threatening a guard, right? Like, they were going to kill somebody if the snake didn't confess, so he knew Nicolas Cage would, so he had to save his friend. And also he probably knew that Nicolas Cage was the best opportunity of anyone to get out of there alive. But still, I was annoyed. If I was Nicolas Cage, I'd be like, hey man, if you're just going to get yourself shot, why did I spend all this time looking for your friggin' insulin or your needle?
Right.
What a waste of time. Okay, so now...
The family reunion, which before you get into your problem, I just want to mention again, they flew the wife and daughter to the scene of the accident.
I just can't get over how terrible an idea it is to have the daughter there. How traumatic of an event is that? And that's how she's meeting her father in person, because for some reason she's never been brought to see him in prison. So she's meeting her father for the first time in this like chaos and danger zone. And she's terrified of Nicolas Cage because he's covered in dirt and blood and scary looking and like, yeah. And so she like hides behind her mother, and it's like, yeah, that is an appropriate response from this poor child. She should not be here in the first place. It really made me angry.
Also, they show the mother and daughter kind of getting off the helicopter that they've been flown to the scene of the accident or whatever, and I'm like, has anyone checked yet that Nicolas Cage is still alive from the plane crash? They just flew them there. He might be a corpse, and now they have to fly home sobbing. Why
the fuck?
Happy birthday, little girl.
Yeah, why were either of them there? Like, Monica Potter had no business being there either, but like, especially the daughter. It really made me angry.
I agree too. The same thing. He says he doesn't want his daughter to meet him in prison or whatever, and I'm like,
this is worse.
You just sacrifice 7 years of a relationship with your kid until she's old enough to know that she doesn't know you.
Yeah.
And then you want to start building from there. And here's your sewer bunny. I pulled this out of a sewer to hand it to you. This child looks so terrified.
Yeah.
And the entire scene, I think they're trying to have her realize that he's the one she's talked to through letters and she like loves him and connects with him. But even when she goes to hug him, she looks terrified. She's like, I'm being forced to hug this stranger.
Yeah.
I am scared and I'm gonna cry. And it's supposed to be like a meaningful moment, but it looks terrible for this kid.
Yeah.
And he's like crying and happy, and I'm like, no, dude, you shouldn't be thinking this is a good outcome. Like,
so this is how they should have introduced the movie. Instead of their stupid letter writing montage, just like have her visiting him a few times and we could actually see her grow up. And like, we know that they have an actual connection, and then she could have, but maybe they've never been able to hug or whatever, right? Like it's, you know, and then the end of the movie, like they bring him to the police station or wherever the girl is waiting, the daughter's waiting, and then they could have an emotional reunion there. Because this is just fucking traumatic for this kid. I felt terrible for her. And the mom was a bitch about it too. She's like, accept your daddy's present or whatever it was that she said. And I was like, shut up, Monica Potter. Also, why have we already done 2 Monica Potter movies? You might need to do Head Over Heels.
No, you do not need to do that.
What was the other Monica Potter?
Saw.
She's the wife in Saw.
Ugh, she's terrible, honestly. I mean, she never gets a chance to act. She's just the wife.
Yeah.
But you're right. She bullies her child into like, accept this stranger's dirty, sweaty bunny.
This kid needs so much therapy.
Ugh. When I was a child watching this movie, I just truly accepted and believed that children couldn't see their parents in prison. Like, it didn't connect to me that was an active choice he was making. So now that I'm seeing this as an adult and I'm fully aware that, like, kids see their parents in prison all the time, you can have visitors, this isn't illegal, like, she could have been visiting him all this time, and he just chose to not see his daughter for 7 years. I'm like, Cameron Poe, you suck.
Right? His argument was all like, you know, I don't want her to see me like this, she shouldn't be in this sort of environment. It's like, well, sorry, bud, but like, this is the consequences of your actions. Like, I know it wasn't like first degree murder here, but like, this is what happens. So I don't know.
Yeah, now you'll never have a relationship that's the same because you're starting at age 7. Like, you can't build from there, or you can't build as well as you
or like
you
never a phone call. Like, they made it sound like they've only written to each other. Like,
yeah, were you in jail in the 40s? Like, what was this?
Didn't the fact that Leanne Rimes song came in make you realize that everything is grand and they love each other so much? Happily ever after?
When it came on at the beginning, I didn't get a chance to mention it, but that was my note. It was like, oh gee, I wonder if this song is meaningful to the plot of this movie.
Yep, sure is.
Oh my goodness.
And then I had the terrifying thought. I was like, oh shit, this was written for this movie, wasn't it? And it was.
Was it?
Ew. This movie, a lot of ups and downs.
It's a lot. Like, it's a lot. And we really just skimmed the surface. We could get, like Jen said earlier, it's like too much. There's too much.
We didn't even talk about oh boy, I don't know his name. The character who like finds the women's clothing in the, so like that's handled great.
Yeah,
again,
that's a really bad one.
When child Jen watched that movie, I was just like, oh, a female prisoner is on board somehow. And now I'm like,
really? Oh,
and I'm like,
that's so
sweet. That is like a trans person who was sent to a male prison. That sucks.
Yeah.
It's such an awful thing to consider They try and treat it as a joke. Obviously, of the times, it is portrayed as a joke, but like thinking about that actual situation happening to a human being is so awful and dark.
Yes. It's really like, yeah, it's a degrading thing that really happens to people. But I do appreciate, this is how low the bar is for this 1997 movie. At least they don't get like gay bashed or anything.
I was actually
kind of just catcall, like, oh, nice dress, and then they're partying.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised at that.
Yeah, they're not assaulted, and they are part of the group. She takes a gun and takes a position and kills some cops. So, like, good for her, I suppose. But yeah, it's a pretty terrible thing. But there's a lot of, like, really bad language of all kinds. Yes. And there's a lot of racial stereotypes and, like, epithets. And, so, I mean, it's all bad. It's all really bad. I don't want to be light on any of it. But they got away with a lot in 97.
And it's also, I think, partially because these characters are all criminals. You're supposed to be like, well, this is how they talk. It makes sense that Dave Chappelle's character is being racist to the Native American man he sets on fire. And I'm like, I still don't know if I love this. You could be arguing that it's because he's a bad person, but I still am not sure I'm down with it.
Yeah, we don't need to see it. Like, you've established that these are bad people and they're criminals.
Even if he's setting a random person on fire for a distraction, does he have to make, like, stereotypical comments to him first? Can't he just set a man on fire without referencing his race?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that too much to ask? Can we just set people on fire without being racist?
That is the bar that this movie has set.
But yeah, like Austin said, that you kind of float above it. It's just like you accept that this is just right off the bat, this movie doesn't shy away from what it is, and it's the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, there's some pretty bad representation, some bad or insensitive representation, insensitive language. Like, it doesn't hold up in that sense at all today.
Terrible representation for Southern Americans with Nicolas Cage's accent.
I mean,
also Monica Potter's accent is garbage. Also, her and Nicolas Cage literally look like they hate each other. And at the end, when they hug, she's doing everything she can so that her body does not touch him.
You know why? Because he's disgusting now.
He's covered in blood and grime.
Hey, if we learned anything from Die Hard...
I also would not want to be anywhere near Bruce Willis at the end of Die Hard.
John McClane, I'd press up against him. But Nicolas Cage, no thanks. Like, it's a very clear, like, if your husband just survived a 25-hour standoff, I think he would hug him and not really care about how dirty he is. But Monica Potter's like,
so,
ooh.
Has he not seen Monica Potter in 7 years either? Have they not spoken on the phone? Have they not visited? What?
I don't know. Does she leave the kid with the grandparents to go visit him and be like, I'm seeing your dad in prison. You can stay home, loser.
God, they're the worst.
But yeah, also they haven't aged a day.
I did kind of wonder, like, if they haven't seen each other in 7 years, like how he hasn't seen the daughter in 7 years, like, how is she still faithful to him? Like, how is she still his wife? Like, if you don't see your husband for 7 years, by his choice, you could see him and he's choosing not to, I'd be like, okay, cool. Ring off, divorce papers.
Yeah.
New boyfriend, guy from the bar who's a sleazebag, good enough.
It is a lot to ask because she looks like she's like supposed to be 20 in the beginning, right? Like,
yeah, and like she's now a single mom waitress in some like shitty dive bar. Like, she's struggling.
Yeah.
He's not making any military money anymore. He's definitely been dishonorably discharged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you're right. He's not helping to pay the bills regardless. And his job prospects leaving jail, very poor. And yeah, 7 years. Get rid of this dude.
And like no desire to. I'm sorry, not wanting your daughter to see you in this situation, but then expecting everything to be exactly the same when you get out? No.
That she's gonna automatically love you and like,
no.
Who the fuck are you, deadbeat dad? Also, Monica Potter should have ended up with John Cusack at the end.
I support that.
Disagree. Larkin's terrible.
He's a better option.
She should have seen like a hot fireman and been like,
true.
Hello, I'm Monica Potter.
Cusack's the only other man she like interacts with, so I was gonna give her that. But you're right, she could just meet a fireman.
This whole movie is a Cameron Poe being super selfish. in every way. Like everything he does, he tries to hide it behind an honorable intent, but it's all very, very selfish.
It's making me more angry the more I think about it. It didn't really it occurred to me that it was terrible how they were treating the daughter at the end, but really thinking back on the intricacies of what that implies really makes this awful.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go out there and say, like, of many, many movies that we have covered so far, I don't think any women get treated well in this film. The female guard who's constantly threatened with rape, and then Monica Potter and the daughter. That's it. Those are the 3 women characters.
Trying to think if this movie even passes the Bechdel test, and I don't think it does.
No, probably not.
That's pretty sad. Also, like, are we supposed to believe that they just go home and it's like,
Happy
this
family.
man is moving into our house now. Today,
It's
he will be
awful.
sharing my bed and waking up in the middle of the night to get water. And if you walk out of your room, there's a crazy, strange mullet man waiting there for you.
I was gonna say waking up in the middle of the night to have night terrors because he has PTSD
That too.
from 7 years in jail and then a 25-hour like hostage situation he had to live through.
I guess you didn't get that, like, Nicolas Cage is really strong. Like, he's, like, really mentally and physically, like, strong. He's, like, a silent type. He doesn't need...
It's like
It's gonna be fine.
barely phased him, obviously.
Yeah, he's, like, all in a day's work.
I'm just predicting a lot more dead men and bar fights in his future.
Fair.
He's got some issues he's going to be taking out on the world.
Sorry, we totally forgot the best scene. When Cyrus, the drug lord son, is covered in gasoline, and he's, like, got a cigarette, and he goes, "Sigh!" And then he interrupts him and says, "Honora," and throws the cigarette in the gas puddle.
Is that quote in my notes? Yes, it fucking is. Sayonara.
Honora.
Oh,
And
God.
then you have a stone-faced Nicolas Cage slow-mo outrunning an explosion and surviving, like, a massive, huge gas explosion mushroom cloud. But yet he can just jump out of the way. He's
Nicolas
just like,
Cage does not retain enough injuries throughout this film.
no, he should
No
be
one does.
broken. Multiple falls and scrapes and rolls and tumbles.
Yeah.
He gets shot once in his arm, and it doesn't even slow him down. He's still, like, literally they make a point to show him get shot, and it doesn't even flinch. And I'm like, all right, like,
That's what they teach you in Army Ranger School.
I guess.
Did we survive this? Did we survive a ride on Conair?
The
Did we
ups and
survive
downs.
or did we thrive?
Or neither?
Yeah, I don't think I'm better for having seen it, but I'm not worse. What I really hate about the ending, I think, is that O'Brien and John Cusack are, like, friends now. Even though they had the entire movie hating each other, he took his car and attached it to a plane and smashed it up. And they almost shoot down the plane like 6 times, and they call each other names, and then at the end they're like, "Good work, pal." I'm like, no, now you punch him in his stupid friggin' face.
But now there's all this like destruction and explosions around them, and they just feel like friendship. We accomplished something today. Look at all the chaos we reigned.
Yeah. We really did kill a lot of people today.
Yeah, good job. Let's shake
Protect and
hands.
serve. So, for high points and low points, I'll just say I always write it down, but I didn't have a high point this time.
Plot twist.
Took me a while, yeah. High points, low points, guys.
Yes.
High points, low points.
Who would like to go first?
I will say my low point was the Malloy-Larkin dynamic, which I've said before. The O'Brien-John Cusack constant pissing contest, which isn't even realistic. They would have a very established chain of command for a situation like this, and it wouldn't be 2 guys. It would be like 20 guys all across the country making decisions. And they would have resources and things. Like this, just the way they present it is so irritating and false. It's very annoying, and I hate both the actors and the way they talk to each other.
You just reminded me of a moment where John Cusack says, like, there's no protocol for
Yeah.
this. We've never even thought of anything like this happening. And I was like, shouldn't you? Even if you're normally just transporting regular criminals, you know for a fact today you're getting all of the worst criminals in the world and putting them on one plane together. Shouldn't you have thought, what if things go bad?
Well, and also just the fact that there's not supposed to be any guns on board would imply that there has been thought put into something like this happening.
yeah.
Sorry, that just brings up another point. They have an arsenal on the plane, but they only access it when they're on the ground. So it seems to be like it can't be accessed in flight. Because they also, when the cops are coming in their airfield, they go right to the arsenal and start unpacking it. So they obviously knew it was there. So why didn't they unpack it before this point? And also, if you can't access it while it's in flight, what is the point of having it?
Yeah, what is the point of the arsenal?
It's just so they could have guns to shoot the police in the fish in a barrel situation.
Would it have been transporting it to the prison? Like maybe it, or you think it's like permanently on the plane, or like travels with the plane?
I was just going to ask, would you transport what they refer to as an arsenal to the Supermax prison with the prisoners? Like, I just feel like that should be separate flights.
Additionally, would you transport all of those prisoners at the same time? Like,
no!
Maybe that's not a great idea.
No, I would not be like, John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, I'd like to meet. Here you go.
Let's put all of the worst criminals in our prison system at the current moment together on a plane.
Or like, okay, I don't know if this is legal. Could they not sedate them for the flight? Would that not be safer?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
They definitely should have. And I'm sure they have the ability to give them drugs whenever they want.
Like, especially, John Malkovich, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi, all the people who have to be locked in cages because they're that dangerous.
Yeah.
Knock them out for the fucking flight, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. 100%. Make it a medical flight. All of them laid out on stretchers, sedated with IVs. Yeah. Guess what? You're hired. You're in charge of the prison system, Jen. Congratulations.
Oh no.
Too much.
You got a lot of Malloys and Larkins to deal with. It's not going to be a fun job. My high point will be Cyrus's death, because it goes on for so long and it's so ridiculous and it makes me laugh. I'm like, it's not only does he get stabbed, crash through things, fall from a great height, he gets stompoed by a stompo machine. It's just beautiful. It's so stupid and absurd. I just love it.
My high point, to the surprise of absolutely no one, is any moment Steve Buscemi is on screen. I absolutely love him in this movie. I love that he gets rolled on in the Hannibal Lecter mask. I love that John Malkovich goes, "Love your work," to him. I love when they're all singing Sweet Home Alabama and he makes that quip about how the band died in a plane crash. And I love, more than anything, the ending where he's just gambling at the casino. Fucking every single one of these moments is a high point. Adore.
Fair.
And then my low point is Danny Trejo's character. Like we said, Danny Trejo is a gift. He's a wonderful person. Machete, really recommend. The fact that his character is just Rapey McRaperson and that there's just a whole rape threat going on throughout this whole movie's runtime, don't love, do not enjoy, not a fan.
Yeah,
we could really do without it. But I think they also just have one prison guard be a woman for another reason for Nicolas Cage to be a hero, right? Like,
because he has to protect her honor.
Refrigeration or something? What do they call it when
fridging?
Oh, like fridging the wife.
Yeah, that's what it is. She's just there to be a female in danger that he has to save. It's pathetic. It's a very annoying character, and I
will say I do like that the rapist character just gets his arms ripped off in a crash and dies.
Yes, I did like, actually that might be my high point. The moment whenever they're taking him off they're like, because you can't quite see what's happening. He's handcuffed to a pipe or something, or some sort of post, and like the medics or whatever, the cops, whoever they are, they come on and they're like, "Oh, what about this one?" And then they're like, "Yeah, I think he's a goner," or whatever they say, and they just like take him, and he's separate from his arm, so his arm is still handcuffed, hanging there. That was a good reveal. I think that might be my high point. Thank you for jogging my memory.
No problem.
My low point? I mean, so many to choose from. Everything was just silly. It was all ridiculous. So I think I'm just going to go with what I've already hammered home, is I don't like the idea that this is how the daughter has to meet her father.
Yeah, he really fucked her life up.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Like a lot.
Right from the beginning.
Super traumatic. And it wasn't even that great of a scene. Like, it wasn't that touching of a moment. Like, it wasn't even like she like ran into his arms or whatever, which, wouldn't be realistic. Like, this is a realistic, I think, reaction to how
Awkward and terrible.
yeah, terrifying.
This is the moment where they go for realism.
Exactly.
The whole movie. And
Right?
at the end, they're like,
Right?
now we'll have a genuine reaction that someone would actually do.
That's a very good point. Because it's like, even if she had like run into his arms all excited and happy, then at least like it would be stupid, but it like wouldn't be so, I don't know, it wouldn't be so heartbreaking.
Yeah. It doesn't leave you with a good feeling. I
No.
feel like, oh, that's bad. We got quotes, people. This movie is full of quotable moments. I'm going to not mention most of them because most are full of swearing or racist remarks.
Yes.
Or casual references to rape, which not pleasant. Don't want to talk about. All right, in terms of quotes, I wish I had written down all the stupid things Cameron Poe says, because I think he's supposed to be like making quips, kind of, but none of them really land.
No.
One of the guys goes, "You know what I am," and he goes, "Ugly all day."
Oh no!
Doesn't even make sense.
What
You
is
do have
that?
to recite all the quotes in Nicolas Cage's accent, by the way.
Yes.
Okay. How about this one? Christ in a cartoon.
What?
He says that. Christ in a cartoon.
Christ.
That's like his exclamation. Christ in a cartoon. He says those words. What does it mean? It's a mystery. He says, "Hooray for the sounds of fucking silence." And it's the most annoying thing. It doesn't make any sense why he says it. It's after they shoot all the Colombian drug lord guys. And I'm just like, why? But their whole conversation they have is garbage. It's a bunch of, again, machismo and cliches they just throw at each other instead of actually discussing the plan.
Of course.
So I'm not going to recreate that. I do enjoy when he goes, "What are you going to do?" And he goes, "I'm going to save the fucking day." Because I would
you're
like...
not.
I
That
know.
never was your goal. You were just like, I'm gonna go save my one diabetic friend, and then the three of us are gonna jump off the plane before it takes off. That was his plan at that moment.
You're right. He had never really had the intent to save anyone or like stop the criminals. He just wanted himself and his friend and maybe the guard to survive.
Yeah.
Still a good line though. I would like the opportunity to use that line in my life. So I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket.
Every day when you're at work, people are like, "Jackie, what are you up to?" And you're like, "I'm gonna save the
Save
fucking
the
day."
And they'll be like, "Can you stop swearing? This is a workplace." I do enjoy the old man under the car. He sees that Nicolas Cage is gripping a needle and he goes, "Drugs will end you, son." Like, yeah, that's right. Exactly what you're going to be thinking about in this moment when there's armed criminals and an explosion. You're going to make a quippy quip about drugs. I don't remember why he says this. Tell me if you guys remember when he says this quote. He says, "Well, baby-o, it's not exactly Mai Tais and Yahtzee, but let's do it." Because I wrote that down. I don't know why.
I don't remember when he said that.
Okay. And then he makes a whole speech about how he's going to show baby-o that God exists by punching a lot of people.
Who wrote this movie?
I know. I do enjoy when the little kid asks Steve Buscemi if he's sick.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah, you look sick.
Yeah. And he's
Kind
like,
of a diss.
such a... Because she's like just talking and then she stops and she's like, "Are you sick?" And he's just like, "Eh?" She's like, "You look sick." And he's like, "Come on."
He's like, "Well, technically I'm sick in the head, but like, I should look fine. I look normal, right?"
Does Steve
Right.
Buscemi ever look normal, though?
He looks normal for Steve Buscemi.
So she's just saying you're ugly.
Which,
That's not
again,
cool.
rude. He's
So
a
rude.
national treasure.
I do like when Cyrus holds a gun on the bunny and he says one move and the bunny gets it. What is happening?
Okay, you know what? I'm back in. This movie's a masterpiece.
I also really like when the car is attached to the plane and it's flying away. And he goes, "On any other day, that might seem strange."
Yes.
I'm going to end the quotes there. There's a lot more I could say, but I think that gives you a real smattering of the kind of amazing, smart dialogue you can get from this movie.
Okay. So, the budget for Conair was $75 million, and then the worldwide gross was $224 million. I'm going to start our trivia off with kind of a sad fact. The movie was dedicated to Phil Swartz, who was a effects specialist who worked on the film, and he died during filming when one of the planes he was rigging and working on fell on him and crushed him.
Oh my god.
So that happened during the filming of this movie.
Whoa.
Holy shit.
That is dark.
Right. I mean, I warned you.
Yep, you did.
So some of the shots on the Las Vegas Strip were filmed at the Sands Hotel, which was going to be demolished like almost right away. So they kind of jumped on it. So I think they took advantage of some of the construction stuff that was there, some of the setup, maybe even some of the footage of it being demolished. I'm not quite sure how they did it, but they wanted to take advantage of the fact that this hotel was just about to be demolished and use it in the movie in some way. So that's part of it. We talked quite a bit about the song, How Do I Live? I mentioned it was written for this movie. It was also nominated for both Best Original Song at the Oscars and Worst Original Song at the Razzies, and it won neither. So I assume it is Most Mediocre Song? Sure. Another kind of bummer of a fact, the Jailbird plane that's used in the movie went through several owners over the years. It crashed on August 1st, 2010, killing all 3 of its flight crew.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Do you guys want to take a crack at some of the alternate Vince Larkins? So instead of John Cusack in 1996 here, we're filming, we're casting, we're looking for some guys of the John Cusack variety.
Jeff Goldblum.
Interesting,
yeah.
Brad Pitt.
No, I can't think of a single actor who would
A couple of these have come up before, but Robert Downey Jr. was one. I could see that.
Okay.
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
again, our good buddy, Matthew Broderick.
Wow. I could definitely see Broderick in this role.
Interesting.
I could too.
And then the body count. This is a giant asterisk because...
Okay, I assume we're not including the Las Vegas carnage because we don't actually see any who died.
Yeah, approximately 500 less than what the actual body count would be.
Okay.
Oh my god. Including all the cops. It's a lot. I'm going to say 37.
Like, going back through my notes, I think it might be one of our highest.
I'm going with 28.
43.
Wow.
Okay. Plus 200.
Plus 200, give or take. Yeah.
Plus the city of Las Vegas.
Oh boy.
Okay, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a pretty high count, even for one of my movies.
Yeah, and it's a lot of nameless, faceless people that we never even see.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No. What movie is this that I'm looking at? I'm looking through my old notes. Demolition Man's body count was 72. So I believe that is our current record.
Nice.
Perfection.
Jen, what you got?
Yeah, so this movie came out in 1997. So automatically, off the top of our head, we all know the biggest movie ever that came out that year. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, spoilers.
I can see Austin was gearing up. She's like, I obviously know
She
this.
was ready. She's like, she's making a Titanic reference. No.
That was great. That was well played.
Thank you. That did also come out that year, and that is what beat this movie for Best Song. Obviously.
Fair.
And Best Picture, Best Director, Actor,
Right, well,
Actress.
Believe it or not, Conair was not nominated in the other categories. It was it was actually nominated for 2 things, Best Song and Best Sound, and it lost both to Titanic.
As it should have.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to argue that.
Yeah, no one's going to be like, what? Conair's not an Oscar winner? But yeah, so Titanic was obviously the biggest movie of the year, box office-wise and Oscar-wise. Also that year, we had another one of Jackie's picks, The Fifth Element.
Oh.
Delightful. So, rankings?
Right. Rankings. I'll go first. I love this movie. 9 out of 10 because it is not perfect. I really hate the dynamic between the cops, and there is a lot of insensitive handling of some sensitive subjects. Otherwise, I would get a 10. Just straight up. Quality, I am going to give it a 10 because it's insane. It's weird. They reuse a lot of the same sets, and I can tell. I think everyone can tell. It's very questionable about where they are in the world, but where they are in the world is flushed out well. So I like this movie, and I like the look of it. I like a desert set movie, so I give it a 10.
Wow, not what I expected.
I know, but I'm feeling it.
You know, I respect it. for me, I'm gonna go enjoyment 8. Had a great time. Fully enjoyed it. I had some flashbacks to my childhood. When we got to the Sweet Home Alabama sing-along scene, it became like a very visceral memory for me, where I was like, oh, I have seen this a lot. Yeah, fully good time had by all. Quality, I don't know how to define. Because if we're going to say, like, how's the acting? I'd be like, there's some really great acting. And then there's also Nicolas Cage's accent. And if we're going to go, like, how's the writing? I'm going to be like, again, there's some really great writing, a.k.a. Sayonara. And then there's also some really bad writing. Like, no one will notice that we've destroyed all of Las Vegas. So I'm just going to have to give it, like, a 6, you know?
It's funny because when we talk quality, I always just default to the sets. I don't know why, but I'm always, that's it. I'm nothing with the acting or the music or the writing. I'm like, how did it look?
You're so literal with movies. Even for that, it comes down to literally what am I looking at? Do I believe it? Yes. Good quality.
I am a flawed individual.
You are who you are.
I have no idea.
I'm so interested. I feel like
it could go any way, because at first she was really like stoner, everything's cool, peace, love, and Con Air. But then we talked about it, and she was like, wait, what was this movie?
Please, just have peace, love, and Con Air somewhere in the promo. This is the best quote ever.
T-shirts.
Yes. A little hand doing a peace sign.
Okay. I am going to go with where I was at before we talked about it, where I only caught about 80% of the plot.
That's what I wanted you to do. I'm like, please go with your initial happy moments.
I mean, it's still going to be like a 4. I feel like that's pushing it. But I did like it more than Cliffhanger, and I gave Cliffhanger a 3. So
we're moving up. We're getting
her
up there.
Keep things in perspective. And when I use half points, you guys yell at me, even though you guys use half points all the time.
Do we, though?
Have I ever used a half point?
Have I ever?
Jackie definitely has.
How dare you?
We need someone to start like a wiki page on like keeping track of our ratings.
I should do it.
Okay, Friendometer.
Oh yeah, Friendometer.
Did you give us a rating for quality?
Oh no, yes I did. Didn't I? No, I didn't.
No, you said 4 enjoyment.
Shit.
Is that a 0?
I'm assuming your quality's a 9?
Or a 10, maybe. Roll that 10 out.
Close. 4, I think. I'm gonna stick with a solid 4. 4 is all around for me.
So altogether, it got an 8. Good job. She loved it.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing this whole time, for sure.
I'm in charge of the numbers now, so guess what? You gave it an 8.
Oh, God. So, yeah, 4s all around for me. It wasn't, honestly, I think you guys made me expect it to be, like, 20 times worse than it was.
That's a strategy.
So I think I was just waiting for it to get worse, and it always kind of was always insane. So
that's, fully accurate. I trust
skewed.
that. I believe you.
Yeah. But that's where I'm at. And my friendometer's fine. We're green.
Yeah, my friendometer is super green. I had a great time. This was a fantastic conversation about the world's craziest fucking movie.
You know what? I'm feeling good. I really was expecting Austin to really, really, really hate this and like give it 0s and be like, I hate you for making me watch this. So I will take your 4s in with a happy, open heart. And my friendometer is green, super green.
Excellent.
Happy about this.
Cool.
Peace, love, and Con Air, guys.
Peace, love, and Con Air.
That's our new slogan.
I love it so much.
Oh, it's my turn next week then.
Oh no. Mood plummeting.
You're
like
fine.
The plane in Con Air.
Yeah, my mood is just crashing into Las Vegas.
I think we're gonna watch West Side Story. We made it. We got through Con Air. Next week we're going to be doing West Side Story, and you can follow us online on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website. It's IHateYourTastedMovies.wordpress.com, and there are links there to our merch, which will soon include Peace, Love, and Con Air. If you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate it. You can find us at buymeacoffee.com/IHateYourTaste, and you can support us there. And if you like what we're doing, please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That really, really helps. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week. Bye.